So I think that there are many, many lessons that can be learned through raising animals. One of the experiences that I've had is that I have dogs and we have bred those dogs. And there is a ton to learn from, well, every situation we're in. But when you get into matters of life and death, it just seems like the content of what can be derived increases multiple fold. So I want to share some lessons on motherhood that I've seen at a distance through these dogs. And I think it's kind of crazy that in many cases, these Huskies are better moms than most moms in the first world, at least. So, one thing is that, and this one's giving them too much credit, but dogs want to breed. And I'd say humans do too, if you know what I mean. But obviously, humans know where babies come from. Dogs do not. They have no idea what awaits them. It's not a decision that they're making towards being mothers, these female dogs. But we'll jump ahead to when the babies are born. From the moment these dogs start having puppies, they are consumed in focus on the welfare of the puppies. In fact, it can be kind of challenging. Sometimes they need help. The babies come out in these sacks, and the sack has to be opened up so that they can start breathing once the cord gets detached. And that doesn't always happen, and the mothers don't always know that they need to break that open if it's not already open. So you have to get in there and help and open the sack, and the mothers can be overprotective and try to bite you. And so you have to have a good relationship with that dog so that they trust you, and you have to comfort them and make sure they know that you're not hurting their babies. But so they're good about this to a fault. And then that continues as the puppies grow older. Most of these husky mothers will they'll stay with their puppies even when they have to go to the bathroom, even when they need to get more water or eat. And you actually have to watch them and usually apply a little bit of pressure to get them out of wherever they are. We keep them in a little kiddie pool in a room by themselves so they feel safe and so that the babies can't crawl away and get lost or cold. So a lot of times we have to go in there and lift them out of the pool, and it's not infrequent, at least at the beginning and with the first litter, that we'll actually have to carry the dog outside so it can go to the bathroom and keep it out of the room so it will drink more water and eat food and everything so that we can keep the dogs healthy. Because all they want to do is be with their puppies. Now, contrast this to women in the first world today. Are they consummately focused on their babies? No, they are not. No, they're not. That is a rare thing. It's such a rare thing that if you see it in public, it will startle you. If you see a mom that's actually focusing on her young children instead of her cell phone, it's startling. And at home, it's no different. At home, it's no different, by and large. And we talked about wanting babies in the first place. That's something that's increasingly rare. Young women have a whole list of things that they want to do before they become mothers, if they want to be mothers at all. And it's quite troubling. And it's not recognized as much as it should be that these are competing interests, that you can't do it all. You can't be as good of a mother if you put other things in front of that than you could if that was your highest priority, as it should be. And why should it be the highest priority? This is another lesson from Huskies. And this is probably true for all dogs. It's just where my experience lies. You know, you can have a dog and know that dog very well and have a really good relationship with that dog. And yet, it is so surprising what happens the second their babies are born. They are so much more happy than you've ever seen them ever. And that happiness isn't just during the moments after birth. They are so happy the whole time they have those puppies until the end, which I'll get to. And you can tell that they want to have puppies again. You can see how they are around other dogs' puppies. And that light in their eyes, it comes back. And their tail starts wagging. They're so happy. They're so happy to see the babies, you know. And it changes their personalities. We have yet to have a dog that doesn't end up a much better dog through having puppies. It's funny, and it's so evident. It's so evident. They're much more affectionate. They're much more connected to humans, and they're just generally much more happy. And you know, it's a really evident thing. So as the puppies grow older, they become more independent, and once they get teeth, the mothers have an incentive to limit nursing, and then they begin the weaning process. They start eating food. So what's interesting about this is that the relationship between the dogs and the mother, it shifts. And pretty soon, as their eyes open up and they're running around, the mother, instead of obviously just focusing on feeding them and cleaning them the whole time, she will begin to play with them. What's amazing about this to me is that this animal has the ability somehow to know to be gentle with younger puppies. And as the puppies grow older, the mom will get more rough with them. And this is where it's really interesting, is that they all exhibit the same behavior. Whereas they're playing with these puppies and it gets rougher and rougher, what they'll start to do is they'll start to check the puppy when the puppy engages in dominance behaviors that are completely inappropriate and unsafe, given the fact that they're very small and still extremely fragile. And so one of the things the mom will do, it's not just nipping them, which that does happen. It's also, they will put their mouth over the puppy, but with the jaws wide, and they'll just kind of simulate a full-on dog fight, and they'll jostle their head a little bit to give this puppy a signal, look, I could really hurt you if I wanted to. Knock it off. And then there's like a more play version of that, where they're just rough and tumble and they're running around chasing each other. It's actually kind of funny. Once you're used to it, you're less scared, kind of like a human child falling down. The first time that's really scary. Once you've been through a few kids, it's just like, oh yeah, whatever. It happens. They're elastic. They'll be fine. But the dogs, as the puppies grow older, the adult dogs will run around, get the zoomies, you know, and they'll just totally run over these puppies. The puppy just goes rolling, right? And the puppy's trying to keep up and run around. Again, they're training them. And basically everything works out just fine. It's very rare for a puppy to get hurt in these circumstances, but that's surprising because it can get a little rough, but it's always dialed into what the puppy can handle. And this is another place where the husky moms do better than most human moms. What do I mean? Because they're paying attention to the behavior of the puppy. And when the puppy gets out of line, the mom puts a stop to it. And she's doing it to keep the puppy safe. Because if the puppy tries that with, say, the male dog's going to really hurt the puppy and could kill the puppy. And so somehow this dog understands better than humans do that there is a ranking of consequences. And it's better to, like a parent's job is to shield the child from the full span of world consequences and inoculate them by giving them a smaller dose of those consequences. So it's better for the mom to nip that little puppy. It causes pain, but to nip that puppy than it is for some random adult dog to bite its head off. And that's the response they're going to get if they try that with them. And so they dial this in and start training these puppies. And it works. It works every time. And as the dog grows older, in some cases we've had puppies that a puppy that we couldn't find a home for, and it gets bigger. Not too big, but into better integration with the pack, so to speak, instead of being treated special off to its own. And they integrate just fine. Why? Because the moms teach them not to be knuckleheads. They give them expectations of what normal dog behavior is, and they don't let them go outside of that. And they feed them watered down consequences to prepare them for the greater consequences. And so this is just a quick handful of these things that you can learn from observing these animals. And unfortunately, humans, we have the ability to think, but we don't always use that well. And instead of using it to learn more and better than what animals do, unfortunately, in the modern world, we often use it as an excuse to hold completely false ideas or ridiculous ideas, or to justify ridiculous behaviors. And we need to really do better in recognizing and speaking out on the truth. And there's maybe no better place to do this than at home. Not just in your home, but to speak in public about truths that pertain to the home. There is nothing a woman can do with her life that will give her greater meaning than finding a high-quality man to marry and having children. That is a fact. We should stop hiding that fact. We should stop pretending that it's not true. We should stop pretending that for a woman, having children is somewhere other than at the top of the meaning hierarchy, because it's not. And the problem is when you put things in front of that and you spend your life in a different direction before turning to that, it harms you in a multitude of ways. One of them being you will always feel guilty knowing that you spent years of your life in pursuit of things that were actually quite meaningless in comparison. And it will make it that much harder for you to pour your whole heart and soul into those children, which is part of the equation. It doesn't work out very well for you or them doing anything less than that. And we have to stop pretending as a society that there is some greater source of meaning for women. Because part of the problem, part of why there is less than total attraction for women to be stay-at-home moms or moms at all, is that we lie to them and we tell them that anything could be better. And it's also the language we use to describe that. A lot of people, well-meaning, I guess, go around talking about the work it is to be a stay-at-home mom. And we'll just use that because it takes out the potentially confounding variable of women who also have to work outside the home. And you get people who say things like, well, this is work too. And man, it's hard. Man, is it hard being a stay-at-home mom. Let me tell you something. Let's right the ship here. And let's talk about equivalencies. You know what a man would call doing what a stay-at-home mom does if he were able to do that? He'd call it retirement. He'd call it retirement because someone else would be worried about paying all the bills, and he would get to spend 100% of his time in pursuits that create the greatest meaning. That's called retirement. Now, if a woman doesn't want to do that, if she doesn't want to spend her whole heart and soul on what gives you the greatest meaning as a woman, that's fine. But don't pretend it's anything less than what it is. It's a golden ticket. Women are born with a golden ticket. If they make their choices wisely, very close to 18, they get to retire for life. They get to spend their entire life on the things that produce the greatest meaning, with very little overhead or distraction. Men do not have that option. There's nothing in life that gives that to men. And until we start talking about this honestly, it's never going to right the ship societally. These things will always be beyond inflammatory for the modern world until the modern world ceases to exist, which will happen. But there are some few people who will respond appropriately to this information. And they need to hear it. They need to hear it from you, especially if you're an older woman, especially if you're their mother. No one wants to hear this from a middle-aged guy. But it's true no matter who says it. So somebody has to start saying it. God has given us the blessing of evidence for truth in and through all things. And you don't have to be a genius to see these things. If you have some dogs or you raise animals, you see a lot of truth that for some reason is so far from the public mindset. And we have to be more honest about these things and more vocal in sharing them. And it doesn't matter who we offend in doing so, because someone needs to say it. And if you believe it, you should say it. It's certainly the case that people who disagree with you are going to do that. The only hope that truth has is for it to be voiced by those who have it.